Hey guys! So in this video we are going to talk about mastering programming and being a master programmer. So let's get into it. Now, you might wonder, how in the world can I express an opinion on this topic? Well, I can express this opinion because throughout my career so far I've met a few true master programmers, and they have two things in common, I would say, on average. Now, I've met them from varying degrees of mastership. I've met programmers who've been working for 20-30 years, and I've met master programmers who have been working for maybe 10 years, something of that nature. And the things that, to me at least, make them stand out as developers are, of course, there's an enormous amount of skill and experience and all that stuff. But there are two things that really stand out between a master programmer and a junior. Now let me walk you through it. So as a junior, and since it wasn't all that long ago I was a junior, I can very much relate to this. And I feel like I'm at this middle point right now where if I look forward, I see what the master programmers are doing, and I look backwards and I see what the juniors are doing. And there I am, kind of in between things right now, just figuring stuff out. And the most common feature, apart from, the obvious thing here is to say that, oh, there's an experience difference. Well, of course there's an experience difference. Somebody who's been doing this for 20 years is going to have more experience than somebody who's been doing it for a few months or a year or 2 years or something like that. But what's interesting is that for a junior developer, one of the most common things I see is that they adhere very strictly to paradigms and programming rules and practices. It's almost a religious thing where a junior developer reads the doctrines of programming as a fundamentalist. They abide to these rules and practices, and they experiment and they discover things, and their code reflects that. It's almost like, as I said, watching a fundamentalist or somebody who is searching for an identity, trying to figure out how to take these skills that they've acquired and turn them into an art form, or turn them into something new, or try to reinvent things and maybe almost define themselves through their software. It's a very intimate and personal thing for juniors in general. And then you, of course, have juniors who are just struggling to figure everything out. And as I said, the experience thing does factor in. But that's the mindset that I see in a lot of juniors. And when I look at the master programmers, what I see is a pragmatism, if you will. I see an emotional disconnection from the software that they are writing. To them, it seems to be less about, they don't adhere, it's almost like they read the doctrines of programming with very different eyes. They are, as I said, more pragmatic. They have a mindset where they don't follow the rules blindly. They use the rules that make sense to them in any given situation and have them more as guidelines than something that is to be interpreted in a very literal sense. I know that this gets a little bit fussy, but that's the best way I can describe it. In another way, you could probably say that a master programmer does what can be done in any given situation. So a junior, from my experience, they will try to push to do the right thing according to the doctrines of good programming practices. But a master programmer has acquired enough experience that they can say that, well, there are no perfect solutions. And they have this amazing ability to look at the situation and see where less perfect software is actually the way to go, because the cost of making it perfect is way too high. It's not worth making it perfect. It's much more efficient to make it something pretty good, or sometimes even horrible, just to get it working. And even in that situation, even when they are forced to kind of deal with that sort of situation, because juniors don't really like that. They don't really have this, and some juniors have it, like some juniors just write shitty code all the time, like they don't care at all. And that's not good either, because as I said, a master programmer does what he or she can given the situation. And they always seem to find that perfect fit for the software that they are writing. And that's the biggest insight that I got from, again, what I try to achieve myself, is to start looking at what I'm doing with different eyes, to try to figure out how to write the perfect fit, not the perfect software, not the perfect engineering solution, but the perfect type of software for the given situation. And that's basically what I take away from my personal role models when it comes to software design. And I've told you about these guys. I've worked with them for a while, and then of course I have those who are a little bit more famous than I am, and well, a lot more famous than I am, than any of us, I suppose. And that's the thing that I admire most, I suppose. And I try to, as I said, being someone who's in the middle, I kind of have reached this point because, and I kind of think that as a junior you have to go through this. I think you have to start out to being this religious fundamentalist, and you evolve, if you will, into a more pragmatic mindset. You kind of have to burn your fingers enough to realize that, wow, being a fundamentalist when it comes to software development, it's really, like, sometimes it works, but for the most part it's really painful. It doesn't work all that well, and you kind of, as I said, I think you have to go through that. It's almost like as growing up, you have to make these mistakes and go through that journey to realize that the way to go often is not to try to religiously abide by these rules, but rather have them as guidelines. And as I said, that's what I think what a master programmer has truly learned through all the years of experience. They have understood that software is just a means to solve problems. And since there are so many different ways that you can solve a problem, it's not so important exactly how you solve that problem. It's just important that it works. So yeah, that's probably, I would say, the biggest difference between a master programmer and a junior programmer. So to summarize, a master programmer is the sort of person who has been around for long enough to realize that the best practices and all these things are just guidelines to creating good solutions for a given problem. And what a good solution is very contextual. It's not always about fancy code. It is about finding the right fit for the problem that you're solving. Have a great day.